Hello and welcome back. We are now in Chapter 3 of Murach's MySQL book. So get to page 75, read the chapter description, and then page 76 basically introduces you to the select statement. Already we have gone through the select statement a couple of different times, and we've seen variations of it. Now here in chapter 3, it's going to get into some details about it. However, let's talk about how to learn online for a minute, and how to learn SQL and how to learn programming. One of my favorite sayings of all times is Babe Ruth struck out 1,330 times. If you go online and use Google Babe Ruth statistics, you'll find out that while he led the league in home runs, he also led the league in strikeouts. And for every home run he got, I think he basically got 2 or 3 strikeouts for each home run that he hit. So that basically tells us that you have to screw up a lot in order to learn how to do it good. By this time in my life, I figured I'd be an Einstein. I've screwed up so much over the years. A lot of times we feel like all we do is make mistakes, but it's from those mistakes that we learn. Now, if you take a look at the download that you got from the website, if you take a look at the download that you got from the Murach book website, there is a bunch of SQL statements in there. Now you have a choice. You can cut and paste from those SQL statements in Notepad, or you can type in the SQL statements. It really depends on how many mistakes you want to make and how much you want to learn. So, as you've noticed already, that there is one page for the description of the topic that's being talked about. Then there's the other page which has the SQL statements and the things that it wants you to do to actually learn it. So there's a theory page, and then on the opposite page there's a practical page. That's one of the things I love about this book, is basically you flip open to the 2 pages, you do that thing, you can put a bookmark in it at the next time and say, I don't have to do any more. I can just do this one thing and move on. It's not like you have to read 3 or 4 pages of stuff before you do something. So it lays it out real nice for you. Now your choice is, on the practical application side of it, do you want to type it out and have the opportunity to mistype it and make mistakes and make errors, or do you want to just cut and paste? So if you think you really understand it and you want to just boom, 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 go through it, cutting and pasting is the way to go. I am going to be cutting and pasting because I don't want this video to be super long, and I'm going to try to shorten the length of these videos. But you can easily say, I'm just going to flip open the page and just type the SQL statement and execute it. The choice is yours. So if you remember way back, we downloaded the zip file from the website. We have a Murach folder, and you have a MySQL folder, and you'll have a folder called book scripts. Then you'll have all of the scripts that are in every chapter. So if I click on chapter 3, notice that it says 3.3-02. That is the figure that is on, if you go to page 79, that's the figure that's there. So if I right click on this and say edit with Notepad, I now have all of the scripts just as they are in the book. So I can select the script, Control-C, and then Control-V into SQL. Or you can type these things. So the choice is really up to you, and it really depends on if you want to learn by your mistakes or not. So I'm definitely going to I'll be cheating, I'll be honest with you on that. But that's to hopefully make these videos go just a wee bit quicker. And basically I'll grab the select. So let's get going. Start all programs. Under all programs, find MySQL. MySQL Workbench. We want to open the instance of MySQL Workbench, and we're pretty much going to be in the AP under the object browser. We're going to be here, and we're going to be dealing with these various tables. Now, some of these statements we've already done, and so basically if we type select star from vendors and execute it, we can see we get all of the data from the vendors. Now that we maybe have situations in which what we want to do is select just the invoice number column, the invoice date column, the invoice total from the invoices file, but I want to order it by the invoice total in descending order. So basically what I want to know is my highest invoice that's out there versus my lowest. So now you can see that this is ordered. We have a $37,000 invoice all the way down. I'm scrolling down to some $6 invoices. And so again, we are selecting the field invoice number, invoice date, invoice total from the table invoices, and we are ordering by the invoice total in descending order. I could easily change this to invoice date and execute it, and now you can see that we're in invoice date order, and we're in descending order by date. Remember, this is the command line that would have been issued in the SQL monitor at the command prompt like we pulled up before. Now I want to get a little more information. Basically what we're trying to do is we're seeing how the various ways that we can pull information and pull data from a database. Now what's interesting here, and now this is where the format and style of laying it out really helps you understand what's going on better. So I'm going to take the statement that's out there, and I'm on page 79, and you'll see that we have the invoice ID, the invoice total, credit total, and plus the payment total, and we want to call it total credits. And we only want invoice ID number 17. So now if I run this, I'm getting an error, and let's see why I'm getting that error. So I don't know why I got the error the first time, but I just reran it again the second time, and it worked fine. Invoice ID is 17, invoice total is 10, and payment total is that. What really should have happened, though, to help me understand better, I think I really want to put in the payment payment total column as well. I think they were kind of shorting us there. So let's run this again. And so we have invoice total, payment total, has total credits. So I'm guessing what's going on here with this date, this information. I want to take a look at that record, that invoice record, and I want to try to understand why the invoice total and the payment total both seem to be the same. Give me a second and I'll be right back. Okay, that was my bad. What I really want to do is I want to be looking at the payment total, and what I also want to do is look at the payment total and the invoice total. So I have a credit total and a payment total as total credits. So if I was to look at the payment total and the credit total and then run that, you can see that I have no credit and I have a total payment. Now what I might also want to do is, let's take a look at, I'm going to add the invoice. I'm going to add the invoice total to the column, and what I want to do is go invoice total minus the payment total as amount due. So let's run that statement and see what we get. Looks like I have oh, I needed a comma back here. Common error. A lot of times when you add a line at the end, you forget to put a new separator there. Now if I run that, I have an invoice ID. The invoice total was $10, credit total, payment total, total credits, but now my amount due is $10. So because now I'm subtracting the total of the invoice amount, a payment against it has amount due. So what you can see is, not only can you select columns of information, but you can also do math, and you can take data in one column and do something with to combine and create yet a new column. Okay, so now we're starting to get a good idea of how a select statement is built, where we have the select section, which fields, what stuff, what data do we want to show. We see that we can combine information with some math here. We see from the table, and we can do some limiting of the data, only showing invoice IDs. Or maybe we could change that to, let's show the invoice IDs that are less than 17. Let's see what happens there if we run that statement. Now you can see that I'm getting all the invoice IDs that are just less than the number 17. Or if I wanted to say less than and equal to 17, I can run that, and you'll see that I actually get number 17 on that. The next statement that it has, it's talking about what if I want to have information between dates. So usually very common to say I want stuff for a range of dates. So here we're going to select these columns from the invoices table where the invoice date is between June 1st, 2011 and June 30th. So for the month of June, and I want to order it by the invoice date. So I run that, and you can see now I'm getting invoices starting at June 1st, going down to June 30th. And then the last one, we've already kind of done this one, is basically, let's show me invoices that are greater than a certain dollar amount. And at this point here, I'm getting that there are no invoices greater than $50,000. But if I say $5,000 and I run this, now you can see that I'm getting those. Well, what would I do if I want to sort them by way of the largest one to the smallest one? I would say order by invoice total. And now you can see that I have the smallest one going down to the larger one. If I want to get it in descending order, for the largest one to the smallest one, you can see now I have 37,000 down to 6,000. Okay, on page 80 and 81, we've actually already done this, where what we've done is we are showing some column names for the columns. Again, I don't like how this is laid out, because it's all kind of like a run-on sentence, and I think this looks, if you can get in the habit of doing this when you type your code, it looks a lot better. And if we run that, we're seeing now invoice number, invoice date. I believe we don't need the word as. Let's see what happens. Although this thing coming up with date is scaring me. I think we're going to get an error. No, it did work. Okay, it did work fine. So that's good because date is also a reserved word, but in this context, it worked okay. Sometimes what you might want to do is to put things where you really want to label to be sure that it's literal text, that you would do this. Also, it's nice that your code would look nice and orderly like that. There. And then we run that, same display results. And then here's a situation where we're doing some more math. And so let's pretty it up again. And here, invoice total minus payment total minus the credit total. So that's taking data from 3 different columns and rattling it out and see what we get there. And so now we have the invoice date, invoice total, payment total, and credit total. And boom, boom, boom. Ah, there we go. So now we can see what how much people actually owe on that. And I think what I might actually want to do is I would probably even want to be able to order by that field at some point as well. Okay, so now you can see I've modified this select statement where invoice total, payment total, and credit total I've added as a new column called balance due, and then I've said order by balance due in descending order. And so now you can see that I have somebody here who owes me $19,000, somebody who owes me about 11, and then I scroll down, and then we have a bunch of people who don't owe anything. So, you know, all of these zeros, I don't care about these people. So what I want to do here is I'm going to add a where clause where balance due is greater than 0. So this way I won't notice right here now, see I've got all these zeros. I don't care about these people. I don't need to write them nastygrams to say why haven't you paid me yet. And then I just run this statement. Boom, 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 boom. Balance due in where clause. Oh, it doesn't like that. Interesting. It doesn't like the fact that that's there. So what I might need to do is take this information here. I thought it would reference that, but it doesn't. And I'm going to take this, take the actual math, and let's wrap that in parentheses. That way it will happen. Now let's run this. And now we're getting 11 rows returned, and we have it in order, and all we have are these 11 records. So that's interesting. In the order by, the balance due reference field here was available, but in the where clause it wasn't. So that's interesting there that didn't work that way. But here you can see that by taking this math and then adding it into the where clause, that I was able to put parentheses around it with a greater than. I then got my result, and basically I found out who are the people that owed me money. Okay, jumping on, we're by now we should be at page 84, 85. We're just moving right along. And it's basically doing some more. Their book is showing us more math. And again, this is looking like a run-on sentence to me. I think it helps us if we go this way. And we've already done this statement here. Run that. And now it's actually going to add some math here. where we're going to do some multiplication and some addition, and we're going to be reminded of precedence, and where we're going to invoice ID plus 7 times 3. We're doing the multiplication will happen first, and then invoice ID plus the number 7 happen. The addition happens first, and then the multiplication is happening. And that's reminding us about order of precedence. If you're not sure of the order of precedence, you can always remember the statement here. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And what that is parenthesis. I'm sure I'm spelling it wrong. Exponents. Multiplication. Division. Addition. And subtraction. So if you're not sure of the order of mathematical precedence, it's please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, and anything in parentheses happens first. Exponential statements will happen next. Multiplication, division, addition, and then subtraction. Did I spell that? Subtraction. Okay. If you Google, please, mathematical precedence, math order, math precedence, you'll there's actually some videos out on it as well, out on the web. And if we take a look at how do we do a couple of those statements, the book gives us an example here of division, and division has an integer quotient, division has a decimal, and this percent sign here is modulo, and the modulo is basically the remainder. And so there are times when, again, you'll be taking various fields of data, doing mathematical calculations, and they're all available to you in SQL. Not only can we do math, but we can do string functions, and there's a lot of different string functions. If you remember in one of the earlier videos, we did the uppercase function. So if I was to, let's take a look at this select statement. I'm going to get rid of the concatenate for a minute. And what we're going to do is select the vendor city and the vendor state. And then we're going to run that. And we see we have 2 columns of information. But what if we need it to end up being displayed on one line? And that what we can do is we can use a concat string function and put them together, where this the city and the state will be together. But watch what happens when we do this. It jams it in together, and that's not what we really need, because that wouldn't look good, say, on a mailing address label or something like that. So we have to modify this slightly, and we do that with adding a couple of pieces of information. First of all, we need a comma to go right after. We need a comma to go right after the state, and then a space, and then that. And then what we now have is we now have that space and stuff that we're going to need. So if I run this, now you can see it's a little prettier here. And what I probably also want to do is then go comma, space, comma, and then I want to put vendor zip. And then I can run this. And I've got an error. Do I want, vendor zip code. Excuse me. Run that. And then I've got the vendor zip code. I can comment out these two pieces of information and run it. And now I've got a nice city-state zip line. There are tons of string functions and date functions available. Here's a couple of examples on page 89, sorry, where what we're doing here is we're going to take a look at the vendor's first name, the vendor's last name, and then we're going to concatenate the vendor's, I'm putting all this, we're going to concatenate, it says give me, starting from the left, the vendor's first name, only one letter, and the vendor's last name, only one letter, has initials. So then we can run this, and you can see that I get Francisco Alberto, F.A., Enya Irvin, A.I. So let's do something kind of interesting. It's not in the book. I'm going to copy this line. I'm going to add a comma to the end. And my assumption is I should be able to type a right and then a right and run this. Now notice what I have is I have the vendor's last name, the last letter and the last letter, the A and the N, the S and the A. But I actually need these last letters in uppercase, and if you remember, we did an upper, put a parenthesis there, come out to the very end of the statement here, and I'm doing some really complex string stuff going on. Print it out now, and now you can see they're all upper. So it's very, very powerful, the different things that you can do. That's with string functions. Let's take a look at dates. Now, a date all by itself versus a formatted date. So here we actually have 3 date columns referencing the same date field. Notice here's invoice date in its purity, invoice date with this format, invoice date with this format. And so if we run this, this is the default of how it's stored. This is how I would need it to look, or this is how I need it to look this way. So it depends on how your output would be that you would need it to look. And let's see. I believe if I put TH here and run it, nope. So, okay, so that gets us showing that, and it shows us one more using some math functions, some rounding. We basically need to go to the nearest dollar or the nearest dime in this case. We don't care about pennies. And you can see that here's the invoice total, here it is to the nearest dollar, and here it is to the nearest dime to round up. So you can do, there's a lot of functions that you can do in SQL. Okay, keep going. I'm not going to do video snippets of the next 3 or 4 pages. Keep going and read the next following pages up until we get to page 94. 94 now we're going to be talking about the where clause in MySQL And basically that's known as filtering. That's basically saying I only want to look at the data that meets these certain criteria. And we've already used the where clause at several different levels. And what I'm going to do is if you take a look on page 95, it teaches us quickly what those comparison operators are. There's an equals, less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than and equal to, not equal to, and not equal to. Those are all valid operators when you're using a where clause. So now, here we're taking a look, and we're looking at basically everything from the invoices table. These are all of the invoices. And what if I want to say I only want the invoices that are greater than a certain date? So here, I'm going to say where invoices greater than this date. Okay, we'll run that. And now you can see that we're only getting it greater than July 3rd. Those invoices there, it's only in July and August. But what if I want to have a couple of different situations where maybe it's not only is it greater than that date, or the invoice total, and I can put that all in one line, is greater than 500. So now I'm going to get 43. If I take this away, I'm going to exit that. Notice when I run this, I'm getting 44. And then invoice total is greater than 500. I'm getting 45. So 2 more invoices were added to this. But I want to get a little more complex, and my boss is asking me for some more data, and the invoice total and the payment total and stuff is greater than 0. In other words, they still owe us money. And I execute it. Now I'm up from 45 up to 46. So we have situations here. If you take a look at this, we're adding the word or and the word and. So you can start getting some complex queries, some complex filtering. Say, give me everything that is this, or give me everything that's this and this, these conditions that are true. The other things you might want to do also is add parentheses to help make sure that your ands and your ors are correct. And that's what the book gives us an example of here. And here we get the, and again, I like doing this, taking a little second longer, but it's helping us to understand what's going on. And typically when I write code, I would leave my ands or my ors like this. The reason I left this all on one line is you can see I have my parentheses here. So do the work in this parentheses where you're saying give me this invoice date or the invoice total greater than this, and give me everybody who hasn't paid. Now when I run this, now I have 47. So how we lay out our where clause and the logic that you do with your where clause is vital to getting the correct information. Parentheses can definitely be your friend. Okay, the book hasn't given us any SQL to cut and paste on this one. Go ahead and on page 97, there's some statements here that you might want to try, some examples of the where clause using logical operators, where it's vendor state equals New Jersey and vendor city equals Springfield. The or operator for give me New Jersey or Pittsburgh. Let's take a look here. I'm on page, so do those on page 97. Play with those a couple, just I'll rattle them off. The other, if I go select, star from, I hate that, that pops up all the time, vendors, so now here I'm going to get all of the vendors, everything for all of the vendors, and we've already done this one where vendor state equals CT. So now I'm only getting the one record for Connecticut. But what if I want to have Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, you know, where I want to have more than one? So what I can do is I'm going to comment this one out, so I can leave it there, but it just isn't going to do that work. Where vendor state is in Connecticut, Massachusetts, or New York. So now I'll run this, and now you can see I have New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut. I got this null record here. Don't like that record. So here you can say, I want, that's basically you're saying, give me the vendors that are in this list. Give me the vendors that are in this list of states. And that is helpful. I might also, so the in phrase is gets to be used a lot. Also on page 101, it talks about the between statement. And so if I go where invoice date is between 2011-06-01 and 2011-06-30, saying give me, and basically we're saying I want stuff in that range. Oh, I need invoices, sorry, oops, invoices. Now what I'm doing is I'm getting all of the invoices where that invoice date is going to be in that range. Here's the invoice date here, and you'll see that it's all in that range of the month of June. So what if you're in a situation where you basically say, you know, I want everything that starts with a certain letter or something like that. Here's a statement, select star, all the fields from the vendors where the vendor city is like SAN. So if I run this, you'll see vendor city has SAN, 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 SAN. If I get rid of the AN and run this, now I'm getting everything that begins with the letter S for a city. Even getting cities in Connecticut, Montana, and things like that. So this is a nice way to narrow down or filter out data at a high level. I just want stuff that begins with something. Say if I'm noticing here, for instance, I've got a bunch of PO boxes, and that maybe I wanted to do something like where vendor address 1 is like PO star. So now if I run that, now I'm getting everybody with a PO box in there. Now interesting here, we're getting an issue here where postage due. So again, there's a lot of different ways we can query and filter in commands where on our where clause that we can actually display data and just really narrow down ultimately to I need to know, does this field of data just include this piece of information? There's also a thing called regular expressions. It's one of those areas that I wish I got good at, but I never did. And those of you that are seriously wanting to do some hardcore programming, the sooner you learn regular expressions, it's like all the Unix guys at my job use them, and I'm just not strong at it. I don't need to do them a lot, but if you learn regex, if you do a search on regular expressions or regular expressions tutorials, it's a good thing to learn. I always have to use cheat sheets when I need it. So here I'm going to say, give me vendor cities with the regular expression SA. And what that will do is it's going to give me everything that has an SA in it. So notice Pasadena has SA in it here. And basically that's different than it starts with or begins with something. So on page 103, there are some really good examples of the like clause and the regular expression clause. Take some time and go through that, and it'll be worth it. Sometimes in your data tables, there will be data tables that, or data information that doesn't exist in your in a given column. And that can mess you up. Say if somebody didn't enter in data or a calculation didn't happen correctly and something didn't get into your data. Let's take a look and do select star from the vendors file. So we're going to basically, here's all the data from the vendors file. And if you notice in address 2, there's some columns here that are null, and some columns have data in it. So if I add the where clause, where vendor address 2 is null, and then run this, now all I'm getting is everybody who doesn't have an address 2. Now in this case, that's probably fine, but it's to prove the point. You know, there will be sometimes when we really do care and it's an important piece of data, and that is there null. But maybe there's a situation where there could be null fields, but I only want to pull out the ones that is not null. I add the word not, and then I execute it, is not null, and now I'm getting everything that has data in that. And this is just the last record, and the last record's null, so that's fine. So is null, is not null is a valid statement that you can put in a where clause. Okay, in some earlier videos, I'm up on page 106, 107 now, and we're talking about the order by. We've done a select. We've talked about the from where it getting from the actual table, the where it's actually filtering the data, but now what order do you want to display the data in? So if I take a look at this, we've already done this. Select the vendor name, and here I have vendor city, concatenate it to vendor state, vendor zip, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show all of them. There's no filtering going on, no where clause, and we'll execute this. And so you can see that I have the vendor name and I've got the vendor address, but it's pretty messed up in the order that everything's in. So I could say I want to list this by, I want to do an order by vendor name. And then I run that, and you can see I'm starting off with A, going all the way down to Z. I can make it, if I want, descending and run it, and I'm going to start with Z, going all the way back to A. Maybe what I really need to do is I need to do it by vendor state, and then within the state, alphabetical, by vendor name. So now you can see I've got all the Arizonas and now the Californias. Hitting the page down key, California. Now we get New Jersey's, Texas, Tennessee, and how it's all in the correct order there. So you can do a lot of things with the state, with the order by, and you can order by more than one column, more than two columns. Here we can say, order by, I think the book even adds vendor city, and that way if there's in a given city there might be more than one. I'm curious if we have anybody with the same zip code. Okay, so here's an interesting, here we have this zip code here, this is Fresno. These are all Fresnos here, but typically we might actually want to, we might need to pull all the zip codes together and then go back, so we would probably go vendor zip code. So give it to me by state, by vendor zip code, and then run that. And now if we come down to the Fresno ones here, you can see here's the vendor zip code 06, that the zip codes are pulled together, but then the company names are in alphabetical order as well. So there's some really cool things you can do with the order by, and that's putting the data in the correct order. If you notice down at the bottom, there's a section that's showing us the output actions. If we right click on that and hit clear, we can get rid of that if it's getting too messy for you. And here tabs will appear depending on stuff. If you want to clear that out, you can just class the X. Next time you run a SQL, that box will appear. The last part of the book talks about the limit clause, and here's a situation ordering by limit 5, and the clause starts with the first row, limiting it up to the fifth row. There we go. That's weird that this happened to us a couple of times. The first time it didn't like it, but the second time you clicked it and ran. So it's given us the first 5 statements. Here, this is going to limit us to records. Starts with the third row, limit clause that starts with the third row and goes for 2 records. And then the last one starts with row 101 and will go up to 1,000 records. So there may be situations where what happens is you have a very large database and you say, I don't need to look at all of the data, and I know that all the data after row 100 or before row 100, I don't need that. That's earlier. I just need to look at it from starting at row 100 in the database, going for the next 1,000. That gives me the data that I need to look at. So that gets us through chapter 3. I hope this is helping And what I think it's doing, while it's pretty much reading and cutting and pasting, and um, I'm basically what I'm trying to do is help us all get through the book. And by having this video and being able to kind of use the video to walk through the book and walk through the pages, and as I see something that's interesting or I come back from my experience, I've been programming since my freshman year in high school in 1969. So I've been doing a lot of different things over the years and have a lot of different experiences. And basically what I'm going to try to do as I go through the book is just add some value here and there where I can to say, hey, well, if you do it this way or do it that way, or if the book kind of prompts me to be thinking about something, I'll do that for you. But basically, my hope is that having these videos available to you, going through each chapter, will help guide you, and you've got somebody who's doing it with you. And that I could easily just say, go read chapter 3 and do everything in it. My experience from teaching for the last 25 years tells me that in most cases, 30% of the class or less will actually read and go through every single page. Many will jump through the assignments and then try to do it and then come back. Let me tell you, if you take the time, in this video I'm at 51 minutes now, if you take the time and you take 2 hours a chapter basically. If I'm doing this video in an hour and you take it and you have to stop it a few times and do the thing back and forth. So if you take 2 hours a chapter, say 3 hours a chapter, 3 hours a chapter, we have how many chapters in this book? Boom, we have 19 chapters, say 20, that's 60 hours. 60 hours to actually, and I'm saying it's going to really be less than that, to go through these. You will learn a lot of stuff in 40 to 60 hours. And my guess is most of you are savvy enough with the computer and cutting and pasting and getting through stuff that you'll be able to go through it pretty quickly. Some of the stuff for some of you is very basic and simple. Great, just look at it. Yeah, I get it, I get it, I get it. Other things will have some detail and some nuances that'll be a little different. Stop, slow down a little bit, and learn it. You could successfully complete the book and the assignments in CSC230 without looking at these videos. I think by having somebody do them and talk about them and show them will help motivate you to actually get it done and to do it. And I hope these videos help. So we're done with chapter 3. Now take a look at the assignments on the exercises on page 112, 113, and 114. There's 12 assignments there. You need to do those assignments. You need to have the assignment sheet and basically cut and paste screenshots to prove to yourself and prove to me that you've actually done the work. If you have any questions and something doesn't work, on the discussion board, post the question, include screenshots if you're getting errors, include code, include sample code. Say, I type in this code and it's not working, what am I doing wrong? The most common error, the most common strikeout everybody makes is a simple fat fingering typo. Just read it letter by letter and make sure that you've typed things great. Okay, so do the assignments, and once you've done the assignments, jump on to chapter 4.